She was just the janitor, pushing a battered mop bucket through the sterile corridors of St. Mary's Medical Center, her wheelchair wheels humming softly against the linoleum floor. At 38, with long chestnut hair pulled back into a simple braid, Sarah moved with a quiet determination that went unnoticed by most, a ghost in scrubs and scuffed sneakers. Her navy blue sweatshirt was plain except for the faded emblem on the left sleeve, a trident entwined by a serpent, half hidden beneath the cuff. To the staff and patients, she was simply the janitor, a routine presence who swept and wiped floors nobody else wanted. But today, everything was about to change. It started with a glance, a casual, dismissive side-eye from a group of construction workers passing through the main lobby. They noticed the tattoo curling up from beneath her shirt sleeve. A vibrant cobra coiled and ready to strike, inked with such precision it looked alive. "What's that supposed to be? A prank?" One of them whispered loud enough for Sarah to hear. "Looks like some mom got bored with tattoos." Laughter bubbled up, sharp and condescending. Another guy leaned in, squinting at the mark, then smirked and nudged his friend. Probably just a fake or some dumb joke. She didn't respond, didn't even flick her eyes their way. For 3 years, this was her routine. Invisible, unacknowledged, her past buried beneath the janitor's uniform and the hum of hospital life. The wheelchair beneath her was more than just a mobility aid. It was a fortress hiding scars few could see. Prosthetic muscles tucked beneath layers of human skin, and resilience built from years of surviving a war overseas no one here knew about. But that afternoon, as she turned the corner near the hospital cafeteria, the group followed, their mockery growing bolder. "Hey, janitor," one called, grabbing the hem of her shirt aggressively. "Let's see what's under there, tiger." Before she could react, strong hands yanked at the fabric, ripping the navy sweatshirt clean off her shoulders and throwing it onto the floor. The room fell silent for a beat, then laughter erupted, their cruel amusement echoing off the tiled walls. The trident and the cobra tattoo were exposed now, vivid and undeniable. The serpent's emerald eyes seemed to flash in the harsh fluorescent light, but the men still chuckled, blind to what they had just unveiled. Sarah sat still, her gaze steady but steel cold. She didn't flinch, didn't speak, didn't move. The wheelchair beneath her was more than a seat, it was a line drawn in the sand. Suddenly, the chatter paused. From the far end of the cafeteria, a figure approached, his stride purposeful and firm. He was tall, with a closely cropped buzz cut and a square jaw shadowed by days of stubble. Clad in casual but unmistakably tactical attire, his eyes locked onto the tattoo instantly. Commander Michael "Hawk" Reynolds, 35 years old, SEAL Team 6 leader, didn't hesitate. As he neared, he dropped to one knee right in front of Sarah, looking at her with a mixture of reverence and disbelief. "That's not just a tattoo," he said quietly but with undeniable authority. "That's the insignia of Ember 2. We lost her, thought she was never coming back." The room seemed to hold its breath. Even the construction crew hushed, their laughter dying on their tongues. Sarah's calm shattered for a moment, a flicker of emotion crossing her face before she collected herself. Behind those piercing green eyes lay a story few had heard. 5 years ago, on a fog-choked ridge in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan, Ember 2 had led a team through enemy lines to extract a hostage unit trapped behind enemy fire. The operation had taken 96 hours of relentless combat, with Sarah's quick decision saving 23 soldiers' lives at the cost of her own mobility. Her prosthetics beneath the hospital gown were not just medical devices. They were reminders of every bullet fired, every explosion survived, every friend lost. The cobra was more than art. It was her unit's emblem, a symbol of striking first and striking hard, a warning to anyone who underestimated her. The now silent crowd started to swell with whispers. A nurse who had heard the name once during a military ceremony came forward tentatively. "You're Master Chief Sarah Mitchell, the Raven of SEAL Team 6. She nodded slowly, the weight of those words settling over the room like a heavy fog. Commander Reynolds stood, his eyes never leaving her. "This janitor is a war hero, and no one is going to treat her like anything less again." Then, as if on cue, security officers appeared at the doorway, 8 men in dark suits and earpieces, stern-faced and unyielding. They were here for one reason: to protect. The construction crew's bravado dissolved completely as the SEAL commander's presence brought a surge of respect and fear rippling through the room. You mocked a ghost and she let you think that was okay, Reynolds said, voice low but filled with quiet fury. Not anymore. Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady and commanding despite the past humiliation. You will apologize to Master Chief Mitchell. This place is under our protection now. The weight of a lifetime spent fighting injustice filled the space between her words. This wasn't just about a torn shirt or a misunderstood tattoo. This was about reclaiming respect and reminding a crowd that appearances deceive, that heroism often wears the guise of the overlooked and underestimated. Minutes later, a figure in a sharply pressed uniform entered, the hospital director flanked by a high-ranking general who had flown in after hearing the news. The general stopped cold when he saw Sarah, the emblem on her arm, and finally saluted, breaking all protocol in the silence that followed. "We owe you more than words," he said. "Welcome home, Master Chief." And just like that, the janitor's world shifted. The laughter turned to hushed respect. The mocking glances transformed into ceremonial nods. But beneath the surface, Sarah knew the battle wasn't over. Not just for recognition, but for the justice she deserved, for the comrades who never came back, and for the promise that no one like her would ever again be mistaken for anything less than a warrior. The cafeteria's uneasy silence cracked as Commander Reynolds steadied himself, still kneeling before Sarah's exposed tattoo. His voice was low, but carried the weight of years spent in combat. Ember 2 wasn't just a code name. It was a call sign born in hell, the kind you earned in the smoke and blood of battle. The men who had mocked her pallid, the laughter extinguished by the gravity of his tone. The tattoo, a snarling cobra entwined with a trident, wasn't mere ink. It was a badge of honor, etched onto the skin of someone who'd faced death and emerged bearing scars both seen and invisible. The nurse who had stepped forward now took a breath and asked softly, "Master Chief Mitchell, can you tell us what happened?" Sarah's green eyes locked on the ceiling for a long moment before she spoke, her voice a measured calm that barely hinted at the storm beneath. 5 years ago, in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan, my unit was tasked with extracting a Patriot hostage team pinned down by insurgents. The operation lasted 96 hours under constant fire. I led the team through impossible terrain, coordinated air support, treated casualties, and kept 23 men alive. She paused, fingers tightening on her wheelchair's armrest. The cost was high. I lost my legs that day to an IED blast. Lost more than just mobility, I lost friends. But the mission was successful. No one left behind. The room absorbed her words, the scale of sacrifice settling heavy in every heart. Commander Reynolds stood slowly, his gaze sweeping the room like a shadow of accountability. That tattoo marks every one of those moments. It's a warning, yes, but also a promise. That Ember 2 endures. As if summoned by those words, a series of sharp knocks echoed through the cafeteria doors. 8 Navy SEALs in crisp tactical gear filed in, each bearing service patches and eyes that held the kind of resolve only years in battle could forge. They flanked Sarah and Reynolds, silent sentinels who transformed the atmosphere from one of tension to unwavering defense. The construction crew shrank back, unmoored by the sudden presence of such disciplined force. One of the men, once so brazen, lowered his gaze, voice trembling. We didn't know." Sarah's eyes bore into him, steady as ever. "You mocked a ghost," she said quietly, "and she let you think that was okay. Not anymore." A hospital security captain stepped forward then, clearing his throat. "This place is under our protection now." His words struck like a gavel, settling the turmoil with authority. The construction men quickly gathered their tools, muttering hurried apologies that barely reached beyond their lips. In the midst of the quiet, the hospital director entered, flanked by a high-ranking general, whose sharp uniform contrasted starkly with the sterile hospital walls. The general's face went pale the instant his eyes landed on Sarah's tattoo. Without hesitation, he saluted first, breaking all protocol in a moment fraught with respect and recognition. "Master Chief Sarah Mitchell," he intoned, voice heavy with pride and remorse, "your service is the cornerstone of our freedom. We owe you more than words. Welcome home." A murmur swept through the witnesses, staff, patients, construction workers, all bearing witness to a moment none would soon forget. Sarah's lips curved in a small, grateful smile, but her eyes held a quiet fire. The battle for recognition was won, but her fight for justice was far from over. Days later, the hospital announced a formal ceremony to honor her valor and sacrifice. Invitations went out to military officials, hospital staff, and community leaders. News cameras arrived early, footage of Sarah wheeling through the halls now interspersed with shots of medals, service records, and solemn oaths. The nickname, Raven, once whispered only in the deepest corners of SEAL Team 6, became a symbol of unwavering courage and resilience. Sarah found herself sharing her story publicly for the first time, in interviews, speeches, and visits to wounded veterans. She spoke not as a broken soldier, but as a survivor who had reclaimed her identity and dignity. The construction men faced consequences too. Reprimands led to brief suspensions, sensitivity training, and community service at veteran support programs. The city council passed new ordinances protecting disabled veterans from harassment in public spaces, inspired in part by Sarah's experience. But the most profound change was in the hospital itself. Staff meetings emphasized honor and respect for all employees, regardless of job title or physical ability. A wall was dedicated in the main lobby, a mural depicting the silhouette of a SEAL, wheelchair, and the radiant cobra tattoo that had once been mocked but now commanded admiration. On one quiet afternoon, Sarah rolled by that mural, her hand resting lightly on the glass. A young nurse approached quietly. "I never realized the strength it took. That tattoo means so much more now." Sarah's eyes softened, voice firm but warm. "Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the battles you fight when no one's watching." Commander Reynolds stopped by often, sharing stories from deployments and reminding her she was family, never just the janitor. The two became inseparable advocates for wounded veterans, ensuring resources reached those who needed them most. The hospital awarded Sarah a permanent position, not as a janitor, but as a patient advocate and veterans liaison. Her wheelchair still carried her through corridors, but now with an aura of honor that drew respect rather than scorn. The tattoo remained hidden beneath her scrubs most days, a sacred emblem reserved for moments of greatest revelation. But everyone knew to mock her was to mock the very essence of sacrifice and valor. The janitor with the torn sweatshirt was no longer invisible. She was Ember too, the Raven, a warrior reborn. And as the sun set beyond the hospital windows, her story was etched into the hearts of those who witnessed justice served and heroism reclaimed, forever changing the narrative not just of a single woman, but of respect owed to all who served.